Welcome to Between Product and Partnerships, a podcast focused on bringing together product, partnership, and engineering leaders to discuss how to build, support, and scale SaaS ecosystems. This podcast is presented by Pandium, an integration platform for building native integrations. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into our podcast, Between Product and Partnerships. For those of you that are here for the first time, we talk about the challenges around technology partnerships, integrations, and SaaS platforms. And we talk to leaders in the space to talk about the challenges they've faced and how they're navigating the space. Today, I'm welcoming our guest, Lindsey Traub, who is the Senior Director and Head of Partner Programs and Operations at Simpro Software. Hi, Lindsey. Can you share with our audience just a brief overview of your background, your professional background, and your background in technology partnerships and operations?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you, Liz, so much for the introduction. As Liz mentioned, I'm currently at Simpro as Senior Director of Partner Programs and Operations. But before that, I spent about 12 years in the e-commerce space, starting out at Bronto in email marketing. And I believe you know John Pruitt, who I also worked with at Bronto, which was acquired by NetSuite and then later on Oracle. But I was focused on account management and customer success primarily there for about 6 years. And then I shifted over to partnerships pretty seamlessly afterwards because I leaned into partnerships so much as an account manager and a customer success manager because they really helped me keep my customers sticky. And I really learned the value of partnerships, not only in the sales cycle, but also in retention. I had just seen it in action so many times. So I've shifted over into partnerships at Magento, which was later acquired by Adobe, but I've focused solely on the tech partner program there. So building the tech partner program as well as the marketplace, the Magento marketplace, and then later on bringing the Marketo, Magento, and Adobe technology partner programs together to build one kind of larger unified Adobe exchange. That was really exciting to actually be able to bring three into one, and later took on the operations for the solution partner program as well. And then shifted over to Bolt, where I kind of put operations aside a little bit and focus more on strategic platform partnerships like BigCommerce and PrestaShop, and then shifted over to Cart.com, where I kind of went back into operations, built a partner program from the ground up with the team there, and then now kind of brought you up to current day, which is Simpro. And we are launching our partner program in September, which we're very excited about. So this is very timely that we're talking about partner programs.
Yeah, I'd love to ask you some questions about that if I can. And we don't have to get into the weeds of everything, but I'm interested in kind of like how you're maybe marketing the partner program. And but before we get to that, I am interested in, I don't speak to many technology like many partner operations professionals. So I'm curious kind of how you found your place in partner operations and what drove you to stick and work on that primarily.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't think anybody's ever actually asked me about that, about myself personally. But I think it was kind of two things. One, I already kind of mentioned initially was I saw the power of partnerships and I understood how valuable they were. So like that drew me to partnerships in general. And then I think from a partner operations perspective, the way that I viewed it was, okay, an operations person gets to build, right? They get to kind of be involved in the behind the scenes. They're more of the architects. They're more of the people that you rely on to create process and structure and agreements and all of that. And, in my dealings with partners and partner programs and all of that over the years, I had kind of seen the differences between a partner program that runs really smoothly and a partnership that's really easy to execute or has just great foundations to it. And then those that didn't. And so I think what really drew me to it was I want to build one that does the latter, right? That does the former, that actually executes really well. That is a program that not only, provides benefit to the person that's hosting the program, but also the partners that are part of it. And I felt like operationally, I love process and structure. It just gets me excited. I love kind of putting the foundation together and seeing how I can build upon that. So I think it kind of brought together two things that I love, which are kind of the operational side of it, and then also understanding the value of partnerships and being able to build something that empowers so much as a result. So
yeah, I'd love to dig into more of the processes, but kind of going a little bit out of order here from our like what we had initially planned. But what's your take on kind of the state of partner operations as it is currently
Mhm.
from your perspective, conversations that you've had, just like
Yeah.
the tools that are available and also just like the overall knowledge of partner operations, like within organizations that you've experienced?
Yes. So I'll take it in order. So the tools that are available, I think it's really exciting to see that there actually are tools available. So that's kind of my first part of the answer to that question is I think that for so long there was very little, right? So when I was at Magento, there were a few players in the space that were doing partner portals, but Magento ended up building their own because it was just the only way to actually get all the features and functionality that they wanted from a deal rich perspective and an enablement perspective, and then later on doing some co-branded partner marketing. They ended up building it in house, and now fast forward like what has it been 6 or 8 years later, there's actually options on the market for tools and platforms, right? None of this really existed, or it was super nascent initially. And so I think in terms of the state of tools available, it's a really great time to actually start not only digging into to what's available, but I've noticed with a lot of these providers that I've been using that they're super open to feedback, right? So like I've worked with a couple on partner directories and others that are saying, hey, if you have a feature that you need, like we'll build it for you because this is, super new category. And we want to make sure that it's not only, going to fit your needs, but that's likely a need that other people have as well. So it's kind of exciting to see that there's such openness to what the partners need and what the buyers need from these vendors. And then in terms of what was the second part of your question? Partner operations.
Yeah, yeah, no, that was great. Kind of like your overall take on what the overall knowledge of partner operations
Right.
as a role, like in
Yeah.
SaaS organizations.
Yes. I would say there's very little. I would say I spend a lot of time. People always make that joke that their parents never know what they do for a job. And I'm like, cool, my parents don't know what they do for a job, but also like very few people at my work know what my job is, right? So I spend a lot of time, I think, doing like internal enablement and education as to why I'm, helpful, why my role exists and what I can do to not only help partner teams, but also help other teams, right? Because ultimately, like I collaborate with finance and legal and rev ops and sales and customer success. Like everything that I build touches these orgs in some way. And so I feel like, there's starting to be a little bit more openness to, hey, you know, sales ops has an ops or sales has an ops person and maybe customer success has an ops person and marketing has an ops person. Why wouldn't partnerships have an ops person, right? And they need to architect a program just like we need to architect what we offer customers and vice versa. So I feel like it's growing, but there's a lot of probably education and enablement to do around what it means to have someone that actually runs operations for a partner program or a partner org in general, because I don't think that people understand that there has to be an architect that builds the plane, right? And I always make this joke that like you've got your VP, right? And they're likely the pilot of your plane and they're flying that plane. And even if you're already in the air, I would hope that you want somebody to be in the back, making sure you have two wings and maybe, giving you some landing gear and maybe a couple seats, making the plane functional. And that's what I view myself as, right? Is, you've got your VP kind of driving your strategy and probably working, really closely with the C level and all of that. And I'm going to take all that strategy and I'm going to make it possible, right? And I'm going to architect the systems that need to be in place in order to actually like scale and grow the program. So I think I'm hopefully helping people understand what that means at every role that I go to. But I hope that the partner operations role continues to expand in the future as well.
Yeah, and when it comes to like that education piece around like what is
Mhm.
partner operations and why it's so important, like what would be your advice for when is a good time to implement a partner operations person at an organization?
Yeah, I'm gonna smile big because I'm biased, right?
Right, right.
um, but I would say if you've never worked with a partner operations person before and you hire your VP of partnerships and they say, hey, I'm going to need this person, then ultimately I would hope the VP has the ability to hire that person, right? Because they understand how important it would be to support the growth of that program. And also because ops people are usually a Swiss Army knife, right? They're so key to what you're building. And they're so key to, touching all these different parts of the organization that likely your leadership doesn't have time to do. But in terms of when to hire them, I think it's probably one of the first hires you need to make after you've got your leader in place, right? Because I know, speaking from my experience, the VP is working on so many things. They're figuring out their strategy. They're trying to work with, sales and C-level. They're also really, more than likely doing the strategic partnership deals, like the really high level deals that, are going to be huge for your success. And they don't have time to figure out what the infrastructure looks like. Should we have a partner portal? How's deal reg going to work? What does our basket of benefits look like? How do we service these agreements? Like that's where I come into play, right? And so I think, in my opinion, it's higher earlier rather than later, because if you build something and you don't actually have a good foundation, it's going to be really hard to scale. So my whole pitch is always help me or let me come in so I can help you build something, and then we can expand upon it. And then by the time it's blowing up, luckily you have a really solid foundation to build on, right? And if you don't build that solid foundation, it's going to be really hard to scale as large as you want to be, right? So I think earlier the better, but that's just me.
Do you find that like the VP of partnerships would have to kind of advocate for a partner operations person and bringing someone in? Yeah.
Typically, yeah. I think because it is a little bit of I'll call it a rarity, right? It's not a super common role yet.
Yeah.
I think that a VP that has worked with one before totally understands the value, right? So like when I go to trade shows and I talk to these other partners or these other vendors, and they talk about their operations folks, or they've interacted with us and they've seen like all the work that I do, then they totally understand the value. But I think if you don't, or you haven't interacted with someone who is your architect, so to speak, then yes, you're always going to have to kind of go and make a case for that person. And then hopefully they come on and then very quickly, display their value, right? And show what they can build and how they can contribute. But it is usually a little bit of somebody making a case for your hire, right? I've rarely seen situations where there's a knowledge or a willingness to hire, but I have noticed that larger corporations are starting to do it more so than the smaller startups. So I think maybe there's openness to it, because once the scale is there, they go, oops, we need to fix this.
Right.
Let's bring in an operations person. So
100%. What would you say your advice is for organizations who are looking to implement a partner operations person for the first time? I'm not sure if that's a loaded question, but
yeah. I was going to say that is a little bit of a loaded question, but I think when you're looking to implement partner operations for the first time, I think a lot of it is like figuring out how to show the ROI of the operations that you are implementing, right? Because a lot of times it's like, well, I'll back up a little bit. Anybody that's been in partnerships knows that it takes time to show ROI, no matter what, whether you're an operations person, a partner manager, or a VP. It takes time to build a program that can contribute in a material way, right? And so if you're trying to, display how partner operations is contributing to the growth of that program, not only do you have to show that your program is growing, you have to show that operations is contributing to that. So the easiest way, in my opinion, is to look for the low-hanging fruit. And a lot of that is metrics, right? So I'll give a personal example. In the past, I started at a prior role, and we had no way of accurately reporting on our program success. We knew we were in deals. And this is a tech partner program, by the way. We knew we were in deals. We knew that we were generating revenue, but we just didn't, there was no record of it in the CRM, really. It was very vague. It was certainly not consistent. And so what I came in to do was establish a process, create like as basic as fields in the CRM that would actually track this, right? And show that we are in deals. And then I went and enabled all the sales teams and the success teams on that. And so what I was able to do is, one, quickly capture what low-hanging fruit we already had, that we already knew we were taking part in, which is actually contributing to deals, either from, a net new perspective or a retention perspective. And then I showed my value quickly as well, right? Because I said, hey, I built this structure for you. You were not able to actually report on this in the past. And then I have given you the tools to do so. And then here's this dashboard. Let's take it to the execs. Let's take it to the C-level. Let's show them our value. And maybe it's not huge yet, but guess what? I'm enabling the entire team on it. And I can certainly guarantee that it will grow over time, and I'll be kind of, hammering those points home. But I think that was the way that I was able to show value quickly, was landing in the middle of a little bit of a reporting hurricane or lack thereof, and then figuring out how I could make heads or tails of it and actually show what I knew to be true, which is that partners were making an impact. I just had to figure out how.
To your point of, right, it takes a while to build a technology partner program. It takes a lot of
Yeah.
discovery, process setting, like you said. But there also tends to be like this ongoing narrative that, like, basically, how do you bridge that gap between like building and process setting to then demonstrating that ROI and kind of managing like managing expectations around ROI
Mm-hmm.
throughout that process? What's your advice? Because I know you have experience like building scratch. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you asked a really important question, and I think that bridging the gap, and between like building the program and then showing ROI is always going to be a challenge, whether it's for me as an operations person or my VP or even the partner managers that are on the ground. Right? It's going to take a little bit of time for that flywheel to start spinning and for our partner motions to actually start generating, traction and revenue. But ultimately, you have to start somewhere, right? And so I think, kind of similar to my prior answer, is get some quick wins and low hanging fruit, right? What can you show in terms of value quickly? And so I've always like advised the partner managers that I've worked with to kind of do a couple different things. One, if there's an opportunity to help sales bring in a partner to close a deal, absolutely do that. If it has exec visibility, even better, right? Because we're very quickly showing what the power of partnerships is. And then also, I think from a customer success perspective, understanding how partners can help customer success managers retain customers, and then making those key introductions, right? Let's quickly do, a low level exercise on mapping between a partner and between us, and understand where they're involved in accounts and how we can continue to make an impact on those accounts, right? And so I think, bridging the gap between, hey, we're not exactly able to show you that, for example, our partner powered events are generating millions of dollars yet. Yeah, we're not there yet. But what we're doing is bringing value in a lot of other ways. And I'm going to have very specific examples to call out to you. And I think, as I mentioned before, establishing those KPIs, tracking those KPIs, and also making sure that you understand the difference between like partner source and partner influence, right? I think that was a big fight that I was fighting initially when I mentioned that I had to, figure out how to show that a partner was contributing. Was, okay, we have a deal. The partner might not have sourced that deal, but he's absolutely helping us close this deal, right? So how are we going to measure what that partner influence looks like? And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm not talking about like a beautiful, complex attribution model, but being able to tag a partner, for example, and just say that they were in the deal, that really helped us kind of go from 0 to 1 to say, hey, yeah, we're not quite there. We're not generating $10 million yet, but this is how we're going to kind of climb the mountain with the resources that we have. And once you hit your goals, you're able to kind of expand and scale your program, hire more people, and display your value. But I think it's kind of about figuring out where those quick wins are, where you can make a difference quickly with the resources that you have available, and then making sure from the very beginning that you are tracking those wins and broadcasting those wins. Not only, of course, to the sales and success team, so they get excited and they want to work with you, but C-level, right? Executive level. I think we as partner people don't often do a great job of trumpeting our success widely, right? And I think that we all should start doing that more. So that would be my advice there.
Yeah, so at a high level, just so that recapping like my understanding, it seems like coming in, building those relationships with those cross-functional teams, showing like communicating and kind of educating the value that partnerships can bring to them, enabling them, and then setting up those small processes, like even if they're not super like intricate with each of those teams, so that
Right.
then you have like some type of data to report on. And then with that collaboration with those teams, as more time goes on, you're then able to report on kind of the way that partnerships has impacted those individuals, and then eventually be able to build a case to build like a more intricate systems, like, and get investment to do that.
Yeah. So I think you I think you understood it well. I think it's basically like using what you have at your disposal, right? Like what tools do you have? You have people, you have teams that you can help, and hopefully you have maybe a little bit of reporting that you could do even just manually, right? Whether it's tracking in like an Excel spreadsheet, whatever, right? It doesn't have to be complex. So you start there. You start with the things that you have in front of you. You start with the ways that you know partners can help you, whether it's sales success, maybe it's even filling a product gap, right? Like that's super frequent in that from a technology partner perspective. Hey, we have this big deal we need to win, and we don't do XYZ very well. Let's bring in a partner to solve that gap. And then maybe you start a totally different conversation where a partner is going to be far more strategic and power another piece of your platform, right? But tracking those things, even in the most kind of like menial basic way in the beginning, as you're building, because hopefully you're behind the scenes building things that will be a little bit more scalable, likely involve your CRM, more automation, all of that. But in the absence of that, start with what you can control and make sure that you're reporting on it. And as I said, like trumpeting it out, training the teams on how to continue to grow whatever motions you're running with them. Because here's the thing is that the sales reps and the customer success managers that get it, that see the power of partners, are super successful. Like I can speak from, experience. Like my retention numbers were always so much higher when I had partners involved. And, I can say that to a customer success manager, and it's true because I lived that. And I think the minute that it clicks for them, they understand the power that partners bring. It just opens up a whole new world for them. And I think what you want to do is continue to like reinforce that, not only with them, but also with their teams. And then of course, executives as well.
You mentioned, so first we talked about like the low hanging fruit, those like less sophisticated processes, what those can look like. But I'm curious, like what maybe some examples of what like a more sophisticated like automation of this process could look like, if
Yeah.
that's yeah, because I yeah, I don't hear many examples.
Yeah. Yeah. I can give you a couple different ones, and then you tell me if I'm hitting the mark or not.
Yeah.
So for example, bringing in partner leads, right? So leads generated from a partner. I think initially there's usually, from what I've seen, no nice way to intake partner leads when you don't have a program yet, right? So usually it's just maybe the partner surfaces that they're working with somebody while they're on the phone with the partner manager, or maybe, you meet them at an event and they say, hey, I have this person you should be talking to. It's usually happening, quote unquote, off the books, right? There's really no kind of tracking of it. And so I think, one of the first pieces that I like to stand up is an easy way to get deals over to us in a way that I can track, right? So whether that's just like a landing page, that then automatically flows into my Salesforce so that it's tagged and it's, already being automated based on rules that distribute it out to the right people, all of that. Like that tends to be incredibly helpful, because then there's no concern that this lead's going to end up in the CRM. It doesn't have a partner tagged, and all this work that we did, as a partner team and also with a partner, is completely forgotten, right? So that automation piece is super key, because the systems that you set up in order to enable that usually don't exist at first, right? And so it's kind of setting up, how can I do that in a more automated way, not only for the partner to make it easier for them to submit a lead to me, but also to track it on my end, so I'm not concerned that so many things are falling through the cracks. And then I think also just leads in general. So if you're running, a joint partner marketing campaign, make sure it's tagged, right? Make sure that you've got your Marketo campaign codes in there, and then a partner's name is in it. So if these people go and they land on a, web form landing page because they really want to get to your ebook, that lead enters your CRM and it should have a partner name on it, right? Because that partner helped you generate it. And so I think those are just kind of two examples, maybe from, a deal reg perspective and maybe a co-marketing perspective on some sort of content, that if you don't have the structures or the more advanced, I guess, systems and automations in place, then it's super hard to demonstrate that a partner is part of it. So I think getting those set up is usually like a little bit higher complexity, just because if you have nothing, anything will do. And then once you get to anything, the 0 to 1, you want to find out a little bit more refinement, right? A little bit more sophisticated ways to attribute, a partner having a role in a deal.
I think that was a great breakdown. So I know that you have a lot of experience building partner programs from scratch. I'm curious what your kind of like how you do this programmatically from a high level. You're building a new technology partner program.
Yeah.
Yeah. what's your process like? We can talk generally here, but you could also feel free to like use an example also if that helps.
Yeah, no, great question. And I think that's probably what scares people the most about building something from the ground up is like, oh my God, I have this blank canvas. Where do I start and what do I do with this
Right.
canvas, right? But I think it starts with a ton of discovery, right, in multiple areas. So I think what I usually like to do is start with an assessment of the types and categories of partners in the ecosystem, right? So I need to understand what the playing field looks like in order to build a program that will deliver value to them as well as to our company, right? So I kind of start with like, what does the world around me look like, right? And that could be, maybe an assessment of external sources, but of course internal sources as well, right? So talking to different teams, and understanding maybe what partnerships might exist today, because very frequently there's partnerships in play, but they're not formalized, right? So kind of just getting an understanding or a state of the union so far. And then while I'm digging into those partner types and kind of understanding what the ecosystem looks like, I'm also basically doing an assessment internally of what partner initiatives maybe have performed well or haven't performed well. Like I said, even if there is no program, there's usually something that's happened, right? Like maybe we tried something super strategic with Google and it was horrible, or maybe it went really well. We don't know, right? But I think I try to get at least some sort of assessment of, has anything been tried in the past? Why did it work? Why didn't it work? What were the learnings? What should we keep from it? What should we not keep from it? And then I'll talk to each of the teams, right? Because sometimes that there's no fruit there. Maybe nothing has been tried. Maybe, there's been no attempt at any sort of partnerships. And if that's the case, then I kind of go to the root of it, which is, let's talk to the teams that are facing or customer facing or prospect facing, right? So I'll talk to the CSMs and ask them, what are the issues that you're seeing, or what are you getting requests about, right? Is it product gaps that maybe a partner could fill? Is it a need to work with a systems integrator that can help you kind of plug in point A to point B? Just kind of getting them to give me some information. And then I'll talk to sales and say, hey, have you ever had a partner help you close a deal? Is there something missing in the sales process that maybe I could help you with or make stronger? Or if you have anybody that you like working with, just, tell me who that is. And maybe we need to replicate that. And I think one piece that a lot of people forget about is talking to support. I think support will come across so much, of course, right? Unfortunately, they usually get like the angry, support requests around something is broken. But a lot of times it's, people coming to them with maybe, like I said, product gaps, or they're asking them for recommendations on how to do something that maybe your product can't do today, or a recommendation on how to implement something that they're unable to implement. So that opens up the opportunity for a technology partner or a services partner to fill that gap, right? So those are just three teams, but essentially I talk to everybody. I talk to everybody that will talk to me. Basically, I knock on everyone's door. And I'm trying to basically plug into any area that will provide me with feedback, and then give me a pulse on if there have been any partner motions or lack thereof, how have they gone? And then I guess the last piece would be going and digging into any reporting and metrics. If there is, there isn't often. But if there's anything, I want to look at that. I want to know if there's been any goals that we've set forth, even if from a sales perspective, right? Because a lot of times, you enter into a situation where the sales team is more responsible for quote unquote partnerships, and are they goaled around that, and how has that gone? So those are kind of like my basics, right? The foundational pieces of like understand the ecosystem and the playing field, talk to every team that you possibly can, and understand what's gone on so far, even if there hasn't been anything that's happened from a partner perspective. What do they need? And I promise you, if you ask questions, they'll tell you. And then, of course, reporting and metrics. And I think one specific thing that I was lucky enough to do when I was at Magento is my boss let me go to trade shows, and he let me go to Magento Imagine, which is like their annual conference. And it was so incredibly helpful to go there and talk to partners and customers and prospects and just pick their brains, right? And so, I started my career at Bronto in inside sales for a short time, so I have no problem talking to people. And I would just take a shift in the booth and chat, with people that came by, because partners want to come by the booth too. And, maybe I'd go to a session or a breakout, catch people afterwards, maybe take people out to drinks after. But you're getting such a big cross section of partners and customers and prospects, and it's so valuable to have that time to be face to face. And I just always came back with actionable insights that I could implement. And I felt like that was just like the perfect use of time, because think about the amount of time you spend trying to schedule time to do like an interview or to talk to a partner or a customer or a prospect. And you feel like you're intruding on their time, right? You don't want to waste it. You know, they're busy. If they're already there, it's a great opportunity, right? So that was one that I think I was a little bit surprised by being so valuable, right? Because at first I just figured I was so new to the org that I was like, oh, I'm just going to go learn about Magento, but it was so much more than that, right? And I felt like that tool was just so valuable, and I hope to continue doing that, because it's just, you have the opportunity to just be a sponge in that scenario, which I think is rare.
Yeah. No, that was a great like breakdown. I'm actually curious kind of because we talked about how you've worked on building up these processes and like building these programs. A conversation that I'm often hearing is kind of, okay, the program is set, but now we need more resources, and we got to kind of build a case to build this
Yeah.
case now, like now that the program's been going on for some time, build a case to get more resources, either for like more resources internally or to outsource
Mm-hmm.
for a tool of some
Mm-hmm.
sort. I'm curious if you've also been part of like that, like helping the partnerships or like build that case, and like
Yeah.
at a high level, what would the components of that case be that would be
Mm-hmm.
compelling, the most compelling to get that investment?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it differs based on the case,
Yes.
right? But I will say I've built so many like pitch decks of like these are the resources I need, and here's why you should say yes to me. So whether it's like systems, or I need more humans, or whatever the case may be. So I definitely have taken part in that. I think the things that I focus on is, if you have data, that's going to be what helps you the most, right? And so if I can kind of attach, a number to whatever it is, the system or the person or whatever that resource is. I try to do that. Sometimes you don't have it, right? But any data that you do have is helpful. So when I was working on or managing the Magento support team, partner support team, and marketplace support team, I basically like made a case for like not only partner satisfaction and customer satisfaction, but the amount of cases that we could handle and control, as well as our response time. And so I used every metric that I had to basically say, like, this is the state of what we have today. This is where we could be in the future, right? And that was a little bit different because I had some pretty solid numbers around like cases and CSAT and how I felt that would improve if we could respond faster with another person on the team, that sort of thing. I think from a systems perspective, I've had to make the case for multiple partner portals, a partner directory platform, you name it. I've done a lot. I think in general, when I'm trying to make those cases, I will try to tie in an ROI story if ever possible, right? So I think when I was making a case for an automated account mapping platform, I basically looked at, what the addressable market would be between us and our largest partner, and the ability to map those partnerships and potential like prospect customer overlaps, all of that more quickly. What was the potential revenue that represented to me? And if we could address that more quickly and get those numbers into the pipeline, I then applied like our average time to close to that, right? And I could basically like, take close rate, average time to close, and apply those metrics to what I felt like was the addressable market between the two of us. And then kind of, extrapolate an estimated number of what buying this tool could then produce for me, right? So I think there's usually a backdoor in, even if you don't have exact numbers, right? To figure out, hey, this is what this could potentially represent in growth. And if you don't have an exact number, I do think that there's a way that you can demonstrate the value in other ways, right? So for example, like partner portals sometimes are hard to demonstrate value. But the way that I would kind of, backdoor to that is one partner experience, partner satisfaction, and ease with which you submit leads, right? And leads equal dollars. So I could say, hey, we don't have an easy way to get leads today. If we have this partner portal, we will. And I would, guesstimate that of this many partners, this many people will submit a lead. And that's how I'm going to get to my estimation of value that you would get out of making this investment, blah, blah, blah. So there's a lot of ways and kind of flavors in which you can paint what that investment would look like and how you can, glean the value out of it. But I think it also depends on who you're presenting to, right? I've had much harder pitches in some ways, and I've pitched to like a CFO, and I knew what she wanted to see versus like a VP of sales, and I knew that he wanted to see something totally different, right? So I think you do have to tailor it to your audience, but I think there's a way to kind of figure out what matters most to them and then pitch based on that.
Yeah. One area of challenge that I hear a lot about, just like at the organization that I work at, is around like pitching to get resources for a new to build integrations. And I think you mentioned one example around, hey, there's this many customer, like this integration has come up in like this many customer calls, or like if we partner and we create an integration with this partner, right, we have this overlap, and so this is the potential revenue that we can get from like integrating and launching that partnership. Is there any I feel like I touched on the points that you had mentioned, but is there any other way to build a case, or any other metric that would like be compelling to build that case that we haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah. I mean, I think a traditional metric would be like the cost to build versus the cost to quote unquote buy, right? And it's like, what do my engineering resources look like? Who am I paying? Who's on my payroll to do this? And my guess is they probably are booked, right? I don't know of a lot of engineers that like just are giving out time for people to like slot projects into their schedule. So I think you touched on a lot of the things that I would probably factor into a pitch as well. But I think if I'm trying to make a case for, maybe outsourcing somebody to help me build my integration rather than doing it myself, probably the first place I go is, this is how much it would cost for my engineer to build it versus if we outsource to this service that can do it for this much money. And then also time to market as well. So if this person internally, because they're not working on only this thing, because they have all these other priorities for our company, as they should, it will take them much longer to get to market, right? So not only do they cost more, they likely will take longer to get to market because this isn't their first priority unless, the CEO taps them on the shoulder and tells them it is. But that's usually not going to happen. And then maybe the third party can get it to market much faster, right? And usually you have an SOW stating so, right, that they will get it to the market in this time and it will cost this much, and et cetera. So I think those are two of the key points that I tend to really focus on is, okay, if we outsource this, yes, it'll cost you money up front, but it'll cost you way less in the long run, right? And this is the value that you get by allowing this engineer to focus on the things he needs to focus on, and I'll get this done over here, and you don't have to ask me about it again. I'll just deliver to you the finished product, right? So I think that's usually how I've kind of posed those sorts of requests for investment.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, I feel like we could go on for forever.
I could talk for however long you want.
You just have such a wealth of knowledge, and really thank you for taking the time to talk to us, to share with our audience. Where can our audience connect with you if that's okay with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn, Lindsey Traub. I am Senior Director of Partner Programs and Operations at Simpro. So feel free to look me up and send me a message there. My DMs are open. And then I had to do that. And then I'm happy to take the conversation over to email as well. And then I'm locally based in California, Hermosa Beach specifically. So if anybody's on the West Coast, always happy to meet up and get out of my house a little bit. And then I think we're going to be hitting some trade shows here soon. I think in Colorado and Vegas, which is like the mecca of trade shows. So always happy to meet people there as well. But yeah, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the time to talk shop and nerd out about partner operations. It's been great.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed our content, subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. For more content on tech partnerships, integrations, and APIs, check out our articles, ebooks, and other resources in the description.